and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast. I'm Ben. As always, I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor to bring you some of the latest and greatest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. This week, we're talking about a Pokemon card contest disqualifying fans for allegedly using AI art. We're also following up on a story from earlier this year about Nintendo looking into Palworld. And moving on to a listener-submitted topic, we're discussing how we would rebalance Pokemon typings. As always, you can jump to a topic using the timestamps in the description below. Conor, we were right last week. No Pokemon news in the last Nintendo Direct.
I mean, we weren't really expecting it. If they were going to announce anything, and it would have been a shot in the dark if they were going to announce it, it would have been the Game Boy games coming to the Switch Online, which would have been great. I would have loved it, but it wasn't going to happen. It didn't happen. We were right to record early. There you go.
Nothing. It does confuse me a little bit how Pokemon is lauded as this. It's one of Nintendo's like flagship gaming franchises. It's been with, you know, they've been on that console family for decades at this point, and yet they never seem to have anything or very little in Nintendo Directs. And I don't know if that's a sign that Pokemon is just so big it can stand alone, or whether or not Nintendo just doesn't see it as one of their flagship console sellers. And maybe that's because for the longest time, the mainline games weren't on console. The spin-offs were on consoles.
I definitely say it's the other one is the fact that Pokemon is big enough to stand on its own. Pokemon gets its own Direct where they announce all of their stuff. It's more, they get more hype around it if it's Pokemon news, and then they get to throw in, you know, all of their mobile gaming stuff. They get to bring out all the stuff that they're doing in clothes and things like that, wrapped up with the gaming announcements.
Yeah, definitely. And when do you think, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, when do you think we're getting any more news about Legend ZA? I think it's going to be a while yet.
My brain just said August, and I don't know
that's
why.
Right. We've had stuff in August before, right? Like
very possibly. You
sure
just asked me how my brain went August. So
August,
there you go. That's the little psychic part in the back of my brain is telling you August. August we will get news.
And the fact I was thinking that as well means that you've only got, you know,
couple of months,
just over a month. Yeah. The 1st of August. If it's 1st of August, you've only got what, 4 and a bit weeks?
It won't be the 1st of August. It'll be middle to late.
Yeah. But I think, are we thinking August gameplay footage?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I've got in my head. And we're still going for like a very early January, February release on the new console.
Yes.
Well,
the thing is, January, February, they've not announced the new console yet. How have they not done that?
It's really strange because it is just common knowledge in the gaming industry that this Switch successor is out there. It's being used by game developers to start creating games, because of course they need that to be able to develop the games to launch with the Switch successor, the Super Switch. Are we calling it?
The Super Switch. Yep.
Super Switch. And the fact that nothing has been leaked
is surprising.
Blows my mind. Yes, it really is. So as and when we know more about a Switch successor or Pokemon Legends ZA, we will let you know. One thing that we do know, however, is that Palworld has confirmed that Nintendo took no legal action against them. So this is roughly 6 months on from a statement from the Pokemon Company in January issued. We're looking into it. And recently, there was a interview with gaming newsletter GameFile, and Palworld's creator Takuro Mizobi says that the studio heard, and this is in quotes now, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company didn't say anything to us. Which is doesn't say a lot, does it? But it says enough, right? Of
Well, that means that they never got any kind of cease and desist. They never got any kind of, court allegations. There was nothing came through. No, like, oh, we want to get your side of the story on this. They just heard nothing, which means that nothing happened. Not necessarily that Nintendo didn't look at it, not that their lawyers didn't look at it, but as we said when they made that statement of, oh, we're aware of the situation, that wasn't Game Freak coming out and saying, like, we were on it, guys, we're gonna get him. It was like, yeah, we know our lawyers have looked at it. There's nothing we can do. Shut up.
Yeah. Just calm down. And if we were going to do anything,
we've
done it by now. You wouldn't wait until the game releases to then go after a gaming company for, infringing on your likeness, whatever the technical terms are. The trailers have been out there for, I don't know, months, years at this point. If they were going to do it, they would have done it. And let's be honest with you, Palworld would have been sensible enough to probably consult their own lawyers during development to go, how close are we? Like, do we need to, tone some of these back? Have we got, the creative freedom and license to do this? I think this means that, Palworld is out of the woods in terms of legal action. I think that it won't stop the discourse on mainly Twitter, to be quite, or X, of people, whenever a new PAL is released and it's like, you have those side-by-side images with the circles and the arrows pointing out and going, these are the same things. Like, I think that's the point at this point. Palworld, I think, are very, unapologetic of, oh, no, these Pokemon that have been out for, decades, yeah, we're going to do a spoof and that's ultimately what it is. It's not a rip-off. It's a spoof on what has come before. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I think they flew just close enough to the sun that they were able to sort of ride the wave of angry Twitter discourse. And they did it perfectly. If you're mad about Palworld, you got played. And you are the reason Palworld is so successful.
It's one of those things where...
I know the player base has dropped off since. They're still releasing new pals. There's still development going on in the game. They've released new islands and things like that. There's still money. So if you're mad about it, get some.
and there's get some. And there's two things there. The first is definitely the negative, and we see this all the time on social media. It's one of the things I hate about social media is what drives the most traffic, retention. It's the negativity, the discourse around things. And any company would look at, okay, if we're going to do marketing, how can we make it so that this spreads as far wide as possible? I think it was deliberate on Palworld's part of how close can we get these to rile people up? Because then there'll be people going, oh, I hate Pokemon, but this is Pokemon with guns. Okay, this kind of appeals to me. And, we saw the amount of sales that Palworld got. And it's phenomenal. And part of that was their marketing around it. And the second point, what was the other point you made? I had another point. Oh, player-based drop-off. And I have seen a couple of this where on Reddit months back now where people were going, it's dropped off. It was a flash in the pan. It's like, yeah, most games are like that. They release, there's only so much content. And of course, the player base drops off because they've completed the game. I enjoy Palworld. I've hardly played it for the past month, I'd say, because I've pretty much done everything. But as and when they release more content, like, say, another island, and I don't know if that's come out or it's coming out, that'll get me back into it for a little bit, and we'll see the spike back up again. And unless a game is a live service game, like, Fortnite and Helldivers, whatever, of course you're going to see a drop-off. That doesn't mean that the game has failed or is failing. It means that players have, gotten their fill from it, and hopefully the gaming company can bring out other stuff to keep people coming back.
I mean, let's not pretend like Pokemon doesn't have a gamer drop-off.
Yeah.
Or a drop-off in players. It does. When is the last time you played Scarlet and Violet?
Probably the last time they had boosted odds for shinies, and I got, I think, 9 shinies from 3 different evolution lines in space of about 2 to 3 hours. I haven't touched it since. That's the only time I really go back is if there are boosted shiny odds.
Yeah, I went back and played through a second time, and I think I got to like the 4th or 5th gym or something like that. And that was mostly because I was trying to record footage of Nimona because I was making a video at the time. And I just haven't touched it since. And like, I know people love the raids and stuff like that. And if you do, fair play to you. We're never ever going to shame you for what you enjoy. We obviously love Pokemon, I think more so as a franchise than any individual games now.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Hence why we talk about it every week, is why we bother looking into the news and go, oh, what's happening this week? What's going on in the world? But yeah, no, every game has a player drop off. It's just to be expected. And I just really like the idea that we were right, you know? If Nintendo were going to do anything, we'd have never seen Palworld. We wouldn't have done. It wouldn't have come out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to a little bit of news that is related to Game Freak. So Game Freak has released a new game that isn't Pokemon. Panland is going to be released in Japan. It's and I've got a quote here: an adventure RPG which has players exploring an expansive and colorful world in search of hidden treasures. For those that haven't watched the trailer, which we only stumbled upon about half an hour ago, it's a reskin of Pokemon Quest. Reskin probably is.
Yeah, no, there's a little bit different gameplay, I assume.
Yeah.
Like, it does look like there's a lot of vehicles and combat and things like that in it. So,
yeah. I was doing that is it Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like leaning forward, pointing at the screen? It's Pokemon Quest. It's Pokemon Quest, and it's not, but it has that. It has that look, that blocky look. It has what seems to be some of the kind of gameplay footage, even though there's only very limited amount on in the trailer. Of you've got 3 animals that are just hopping along a route, obviously going to the next batch of animals, monsters that they need to fight. It just feels like a non-Pokemon Quest.
So you're a big fan of Pokemon Quest, as I love
Pokemon Quest. I have played it through to completion twice. I've played it on the mobile, did everything, and I was like, okay, right, put it down. And then found out it was released on the Switch and thought, I'm going to play this again. Played it through to completion. I was one of the few people that were excited when in the Sword and Shield DLC, you see Leon's mentor in the Isle of Armor DLC. He sat down on the sofa, and there's a TV, like tiny little TV screen with Pokemon Quest on it.
Oh, that's cute.
Are they doing this? Is this it? Are we getting Pokemon Quest 2? I am probably one of the few people that if they bought out Pokemon Quest 2, I would play the hell out of it, and I would love it. I love that game. What do you
do?
I love it.
What do you do in it?
So it's so the way it works is there are several levels on several different islands, and you have to build up a Pokemon team that pretty much are automated except for a couple of special skills that they have. So you can have 3 on your team at any one time. And you try to get through the level by, if your opponents use a area attack, you'll have like a disband move, which makes all your Pokemon spread out to avoid it. They'll get, your typical Pokemon moves like Flamethrower and stuff like that, which plays into the whole super effective element. And typically at the very end, there's a boss character that your team has to beat in order to progress to the next area. There is some grind to it in terms of you have a hub, a base, and you have to use items that you are collected to put into the pot to create a recipe which attracts certain type of Pokemon. So you're looking for Pokemon that are maybe have better stats, better moves, or are just Pokemon that you haven't previously brought to your base. And there is a lot of micromanagement in terms of, as you progress through. Yeah, in order to progress through the levels, you need to attract better Pokemon. In order to attract better Pokemon, you have to progress through the levels to get the items. It's one of those and I think that's what got me, is that kind of gameplay loop of, I can't get through this level. Okay, now it's time to respec and rebuild my team. What I like about it is the fact that it is very much, when you reach a certain point, your team is usually strong enough that if you are replaying certain levels, you can just put it on auto mode. and just let them run and do it on your own. But it's really one of those things where I always appreciate a mobile game that, while I'm not a huge fan of having to grind out, at least when they automate it, I can appreciate that.
Yeah, fair.
That's why I love Pokemon Quest, and why I would love a Pokemon Quest 2, which I think if we were going to get one, probably would have had one by now, I'd imagine. Unfortunately.
I thought so.
Hope so. Right, let's move on to the big topic of the week. The Pokemon card contest has disqualified fans for allegedly using AI art. So, on June the 14th, the Pokemon Company posted the top 300 entries of a recent art submission competition. Fans were very quick on this, jumping in to point out that they thought or had evidence that several of the art submissions were not only from the same person, there is a limit on how many you can enter, but also the fact that there were certain design elements of the art that pointed to it being AI generated. So some of the things that were pointed out, the Eevee artwork gaining new parts to its design that are not in any other official Pokemon art design that's ever been used. And the other big one I saw was that Pikachu's reflection in a pool of water underneath him, the body proportions were completely different.
Yeah.
Now, after 11 days, the Pokemon Company stepped in and released a statement confirming that some entries had violated the official contest rules and had been disqualified. As we've seen previously with the Pokemon Company, they didn't say what rules had been broken, and they didn't name anyone that was removed from the top 300, and that any entries that were removed, they would bring in a new set to bring that back to
that's the big bit.
100. Yes. So no one has lost out other than the person that I guess did the AI art. But I guess it brings up questions about, again, AI, the use of AI, and I think more importantly, the difficulty in discovering when AI has been used, because it's getting more and more difficult to find out.
So, I watched quite a few videos on this. Cupify was the first one I came across, and then I saw a couple of other Pokemon YouTube artists talk about it. So, the person in question, as we stated, entered under about 3-4 different names, and you were allowed 3 entries per person. And that's how they got around it, was they just used 3 different names. So you have Vigo Cachadorian, Vigo K, and Vegan K.
Very original. Okay.
And that's the thing. Like, you think you just changed your name properly, but they didn't. And people noticed that, that's weird. Why is one person clearly slipped through like that? And then they start looking at the art. Now, much in the same way as is always the case with AI, it looks good on first inspection. And still, you start looking at the details. A lot of them are done with a fisheye lens perspective, which, as an artist, you must know, that's one of the hardest things to try and do. It is almost impossible to do a fisheye perspective. So you've got somebody who can do a fisheye perspective, render to the highest level of quality, and then are making what would be considered beginner anatomy mistakes. And 2 and 2 just isn't adding up there. So you were getting things like Eevee's ears being one way bigger than the other. You were getting different numbers of fingers on each paw. You were getting Eevee's tail just drift off into the clouds. You were getting you were getting cherry blossoms fall and come across the ear and just have no outline because it intersected with the ear and the AI didn't know what to do with it. The other one was, although they added 4 Eevee pictures here, Eevee is drawn very differently in each single one of them. Like, not only does the art style change, but one Eevee just has a bunch of tufts in its ear for no reason.
Yeah,
It's not in any Eevee official artwork, and it's not in their other artwork either. And you'll see it's got lots of tuft in one ear and no tuft in the other. And anybody who looked at this went, okay, this smells fishy. The worst part about the Eevee one, oh yeah, the Pikachu one, because they did like 4 Eevee ones and they did 3 or 4 Pikachu ones as well. Pikachu ones, the ones that people noticed was they did it in a stadium, and the stadium lights weren't in a line. They're just all over the place.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Yes.
So people were like, you can't draw this well and make that mistake. You just can't.
Yep.
Also in that one, there's just a random, if you have a look at the crowd members, they're just blobs. They're just shapes. And, you can argue like, oh, it's supposed to be symbolic. No, they're not. But if you have a look in the top corner of the studio stadium lights, it's just a random guy up in the lights.
Like an outline.
Yeah, it's just a random guy up in the lights.
Yeah.
So clearly, no thought has gone into this, which is understandable because it's AI. Going back to the Eevee ones, though, it gets worse. So one of the Eevee pictures has a Vaporeon one in it. Not the one when it's fully submerged, the one where it's splashing around in the puddles with all the flowers around it.
Yeah.
And the Vaporeon is in a very different style to the rest of the image. It's not shaded the same way. It doesn't seem like it belongs there at all. And perspective-wise, it's really the wrong size. It's about the size of Eevee's ear.
Yeah,
Makes
actually,
no
now that you
sense.
pointed that out,
So what people think is this is Vigo's actual artwork, and the rest of it is all AI generated around it.
Okay.
In the other one, under the name Vegan K, where Eevee is fully submerged and like high-fiving the camera and stuff like that, there's a beautiful Vaporeon in the background. It's really well done. It's stolen. It's stolen artwork from another person on Twitter who was informed of this, that they had literally taken their Vaporeon and supplanted it into this AI artwork.
Ooh.
Which is horrific.
Yeah.
Like AI artwork
Can't be doing that.
So for people who aren't aware, this Pokemon contest is to get your artwork on a Pokemon card, an official Pokemon card. That's what's on the line here. I think there's also a bit of money on the line as well. I say a lot of money on the line as well. So to use AI artwork, then to go on and steal artwork and use it as well. All these things, and to cheat the system and enter under a bunch of different names. All these things not okay.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that are wrong with this. Yes, the Pokemon Company have come out and said, okay, they've been removed. I don't think they've been removed for using AI artwork, because there was nothing in the rules that said you couldn't. I don't think it was not allowed to use AI artwork. And as somebody who's now looking at like photo competitions and things like that, when they do say no AI at all, that means you can't even do things like generative fill. You can't like remove tools and stuff like that uses anything generative. It gets really complicated.
Wow.
Obviously with custom artwork, you're not using those kind of tools, so it's not so bad. But there was none of that within the rule speculation. So I have to assume that they've only really been able to kick him out, A, on the stolen artwork, and B, on the entering under a number of different names. The real question is, why wasn't this caught by the Pokemon Company, by the judges?
Yeah.
How long are they spending looking at each image? Are they just going, yep, like that, no, don't like that, yep, like that, no, don't like that? We can't do that anymore. Not at this kind of level, where, because AI does look good.
It does.
For half a second of looking at it. You have to look deeper than that to start seeing the things that are wrong. And what it means is these are 7 or 8 entries here that have effectively been stolen from other artists. And yes, they are now being told, "Oh, right, we'll push people up." It shouldn't have happened in the first place. I mean, again, that one where Eevee is submerged, there's 2 love discs just pointing downwards.
Downwards, yeah.
There's the 2 drowning love disc in there. How did nobody notice that? How did people go, yeah, that's a winner? Anyway,
It's I think okay, so just in case people don't know how AI typically works, especially with generative images, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they are built on things that have come before. So typically, if you ask, and I've used generative AI just to see what it's like in terms of it'll go, okay, give me a prompt, and I have gone, oh, give me a Pikachu on top of someone's shoulder doing da. And this was a long time ago when AI first came out, and it was terrible, to be quite honest with you. It wasn't great. But the way AI works is it will go, okay, these are the prompts. Let's look at what's out there. And typically AI is built on, okay, here's a load of images or text to give the AI context. So then it'll look at your prompts and go, okay, pulling off all these different things, I'm going to generate this AI image. And, the longer AI sticks around and the more it kind of has to feed on, the better the output should be. And we've seen that most, I think, in video AI. That Will Smith eating spaghetti. Have you seen that initial one that looked like something out of a horror film? Yeah. Looked terrible. Just like didn't work. And then someone's done the same prompt. I don't know how long it's been since then, but it's been several months, if not a couple of years. And, there are still telltale signs that it is AI. But like you say, if you are just, as most people are now, just scrolling and you see it for a couple of seconds, you might go, oh yeah, that looks real. Because you're not trained to look at the weirdness, the strange things that the AI allows to bleed through. And I think the problem with that is, to bring it back to the Pokemon Company and people reviewing this isn't, oh, they've looked at 300 and chosen them. No, they will have had to look at, we don't know how many entries.
Thousands, probably. To get 300, they'll have had to look at thousands.
How much time can they actually spend looking at them? Probably not a lot. It is probably just a case of, okay, we need, we need a Pikachu, we need an Eevee, we need a da. Okay, these are all of them. And they probably have them printed out or something, and they have a limited amount of time to go, okay, that one. And that's probably all they've put into this. But I think the issue not just for the Pokemon Company, but other organizations out there, is we've seen this rise of AI. What I haven't seen, and I'm sure it's out there, is almost the rise of AI identification.
So actually, on that note, there are a couple of tools where you can basically run a picture through it and it gives you a percentage chance of AI generation. And a bunch of these artists who covered this did this because, to be fair, they did this because a lot of them who covered it were people who entered and they didn't want to seem salty. So they went, okay, I've made an accusation here. Here's the best tools we have available. Here, I will run my own artwork through it. Look, it says it's 80% made by a human, 10% chance it's made by AI. We'll run this through. 99% chance it's made by AI. Every single picture, 99% chance, 98% chance, 89% chance it's made by AI. And don't get me wrong, these tools aren't perfect. I mean, I don't know if anybody remembers the story about the professor who asked ChatGPT if his students' work was written by ChatGPT, and it basically went, yeah, sure. Yeah, we did that. And he failed almost his entire class because ChatGPT told him to. So that's not good. But these are tools that are designed to look for the AI art style, because that's the other thing as well. Unfortunately, because it's such an amalgamation of artwork, it basically produces the same thing over and over again because it's what's popular. It's why if you ask it to do a 3D art style, it'll give you Pixar. If you ask it to do 3D art, it'll give you Pixar because that's what's popular. That's what gets promoted a lot. That's what it sees a lot. And much in the same way, if you ask it to do like a anime style, it'll do this very generic, very beautiful, but very generic anime kind of, it's all lightly lit and it's bloom and there's soft shadows everywhere and there's light rays coming down. It's the exact same across all of them. And it's a shame because if you have a look across the 300 entries, every single one of them is different. Every single one of them has the artist's unique fingerprint on it effectively, except these ones, which all look similar enough and yet none of them exactly the same. It's a shame. Should art competitions start introducing this idea of, oh, we have to run everything through these programs now? Maybe.
I think that I think there's a few things that the steps that they need to take, but also just organizations in general. Do I think that AI, while I have my issues with the AI, I can see the creativity with it and I can see the usefulness in it.
It can be a useful tool.
Yes. I think that, for this scenario, they need to just be clear in the rules that no AI can be used. If they wanted to, if they turned around and said, okay, there's this version, you're not allowed AI, but over here there's an AI version that you can enter. Absolutely fine with that. That I'm okay with that. But I think, for this, they need to lock it down and go, well, first of all, you're not allowed AI. That's in the rules. There needs to be a better way, I guess, of identifying AI. There needs to be a better way to lock down multiple entries from the same person using different methods. I don't know how they do that, to be quite honest with you. And I've seen a couple of comments online that, how far do you want to take this? So I saw one comment from somebody that was highly upvoted on Reddit saying they feel that it's gone to the point where you almost need to share your Photoshop files or Illustrator files with the actual, organization of here's the image and here's the proof that I have in some way created that. Is that foolproof? I don't think it is. I saw another comment that I don't agree with, that it was you should make all art by hand and in person. Yeah, no. I don't think, unfortunately, that works. But I think the problem here is that I don't think it's an easy resolution to prevent this happening again. I think there are things they can try and put into place, but I don't think any of them will 100% cut this down. And I think that's the issue here. But I think, just by being clear in the rules of you're not allowed to use AI, because from let's just take, this person's perspective of, they have entered more than allowed. Okay, yeah, that deserves disqualification. They've used AI. There's ethical things around that, but was it against the rules? I don't think it was. And this is the issue here of, I think that technology is, not just AI, technology in general just is, revving up and outpacing the ability to give it oversight, which means that things like this are going to slip through. I think my disappointment is the fact that it's taken the fans to do this and then 11 days for the Pokemon company to actually respond to this.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I don't think they will have been kicked out. We obviously will never know. I don't think they'll have been disqualified for the use of AI. I think it's more on the fact that they entered in a bunch of different names and stole artwork, which is, those things are, well, at least one of them is a provable fact. The other one's highly likely. As is the AI. The AI usage is highly likely. We cannot confirm it either way. I think this maybe draws a bigger problem, though, which is this was a competition to create a Pokemon card. Does this mean that higher ups within the Pokemon company think AI art is good enough for Pokemon cards? And if they think that, how long will it be before we start losing artists? We've already, right. So as somebody who's a little bit in the Pokemon, in the card game scene, Wizards of the Coast have come under fire massively over the last couple of years, because they came out and said, no, we need artists. We need artists for both our D&D books and Magic the Gathering, and we will never use AI for that. And then they immediately got caught using AI for one of their advertisements. And now they're under fire again for using AI in some of their books, I believe, some of their D&D material. Companies are going to try and get away with this. And
of course they are.
Because it saves them money. Why pay an artist thousands, which is realistic, hundreds or thousands, which is what they're worth, when we could just punch a couple of words into a generator? And
definitely,
it's this, as I say, it's a sign that they go, yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah. And I think the added difficulty is that it depends on the organization. Any organization the vast majority of organizations exist to make money. Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes the way you make money, make more money, is by spending less money. So like you said, if you can cut creative types from your organization, but you can still create an output, why would you not do that? And like you just cited D&D and Pokemon. These are two organizations where they could easily do that because there is so much content already out there that the AI just knows to go, well, okay, you want an image of Pikachu? There are millions of images of Pikachu. I don't need anything. I can just go out and I can pull it. Where I see that maybe not working as well is for, small startups, indie developers, where, okay, we want to create something brand new. Okay, well, what can we train that AI on? Now, and I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that, unfortunately, any organization will be looking at AI to go, how can we maximize this? And unfortunately, the creative types at these organizations are usually not the ones making the decision.
No. And I mean, it's something we're going to see more and more. And if you think this is as bad as it's going to get, I'm sorry to tell you, as you mentioned earlier, this stuff's getting better, and it's getting better exponentially. These kind of mistakes that are easy to see now, we won't see those very soon. We're starting to get to a point where it can do hands, and we thought that was the end game. Nope. We're gonna see things, and the thing is, you can, if you really try, you can redupe it. You can tell it to go back and, okay, I didn't like the way that turned out. Do that again. Oh, turn that around. Do this, do that. This is going to get so impressive that and we've already seen things like Adobe releasing their adverts saying, like, remove the photographer. Remove the photographer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And obviously they're trying to promote it to companies who are doing, like, Amazon advertisement and stuff like that, and just need product photos. And it's like, oh yeah, just remove the photographer. And it's like, Adobe, who do you think you're selling to? They've come under fire for a whole bunch of other stuff recently as well. But yeah. Counterpoint. Not really a counterpoint, just a funny story. Did you see the story about the guy who entered into the AI photo contest?
No. Go on, what happened?
He entered a photo he actually took into an AI photo contest and won.
Wow! Oh, fantastic. Oh, I love that.
And he came out immediately as soon as he won. He was like, look, guys, no. I took it. I really took this photo. I just wanted you to know how that feels. You get.
Yeah, have it. Oh my god, it's so annoying with AI because I can appreciate everything AI does. I use AI in my job at the moment for simple things such as throwing a load of text and go check for spelling, grammar, punctuation, make me recommendations based on X, Y, and Z. It has usefulness. Unfortunately, it seems that annoyingly the first thing that organizations and companies are doing with AI is going, okay, how can we use this to remove the human element from a business, the creative types, the people that design and build things. The movie industry, for example, is another one where I've seen a few. I want to use the word, and it's probably incorrect, like short films of this 90-second trailer was created completely by AI using X number of prompts, blah blah blah. And that you can see the issues, you can see the things where it's not consistent throughout, or it jumps between different types of like visual style. This is only the start. It's going to get, and I use the word worse, okay, because I think that is the correct term here, because unfortunately the people that are losing out are the people whose jobs depend on their creativity, and the fact that AI can do it is worrying.
Unfortunately, it is a case of the people who can do anything about it, the sort of introduce legislation to protect people, can't do it as fast as the technology is improving. We've seen that forever. We still haven't got the internet properly legislated. And look at the mess that's caused. We're not going to have it legislated, so the government can't step in. And the worst part about that is the people who pay off the governments, whether you like it or not,
it happens.
It happens. Donations are a thing. Lobbying is a thing. The people who have the kind of power to do that, have the money to do it, are people who want to get you sacked, stop paying you, so they can just get a machine to do it instead. Yeah. So that's why, realistically, this is the start of something to come.
It is.
And I love technology, and I have always said I am someone who will assimilate with our robotic overlords, but this is going to ruin a lot of people's lives before it makes anybody's life better, I think.
Yeah, and annoyingly, this is for me, it's just data all over again. When organizations they do you
remember when big data was a good thing?
Yeah, and now it's just a case
it was pitched as a good thing anyway.
Yeah, and now it's a case of organizations, if they're giving you something free, it's because they're using your data. They sell that data on to whoever it might be, and they make a profit from it. This is a bit like AI all over again. Of AI has been trained on text, on images, on videos that people have created. Have they seen a penny of that? Probably not, to be quite honest with you. And I think that's the annoyance for me. Of I have images, videos, and text on various websites. YouTube, X, whatever it might be. And if I've got AI being trained on that, whether or not it's targeted or whether or not it's just scooping up as much stuff as it wants, I'm a firm believer you should get paid for the work you produce. Yeah. Ultimately, if someone else is using that, and I think that is my criticism with AI, because I can acknowledge all the great things about it, and I can acknowledge that if we ever want to get to a society where people are able to work less and machines or whatever pick up the slack, I think that AI is a key way of getting there. But unfortunately, as always, the companies that are building the technology are the ones with humanity's best interests at heart. Now, this has spiraled off from Pokemon.
It is.
So should we get it back on track with another topic that we've had submitted?
Yes, I was going to make a final point, but it's fine. We'll go back to Pokemon.
Okay. Yeah, let's go back to Pokemon. So
the doom and gloom of it all.
The doom and gloom. So we've had a topic courtesy of somebody who I don't know. I'm ever so sorry. I went on Discord. I went on YouTube. I've tried to track down who submitted this. I think it was about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. I can't find it. I'm ever so sorry. If you're on YouTube, let us know in the comments. So watching the episode over 2 parts, you talked about the types briefly. If you were to rebalance Pokemon typings, what would you do? How many types, new types, remove types, weaknesses, and strengths? Anything you see fit to do. I don't know about you. I've got the little handy type chart.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, just help me out, because I still don't know all the typing weaknesses, strengths, super effectiveness, and all that stuff. Is there any that just stick out to you that need a rebalance? And I think we've mentioned a couple in the past.
So my first big one is that ground and rock shouldn't be separate typings.
I get that. Yeah.
I think we should just get rid of... I say get rid of ground, but I think we keep ground's effective and non-effectiveness. So it's still got the electric immunity. It still is resistant to fire. Oh no, because see, that's the one that always gets me. Is it rock or ground that's resistant to fire? You'd think it'd be ground because you can't set fire to sand.
Fire to the ground. Yeah.
No. Okay. So yeah, that just get rid of rock, but then call ground rock.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. They are out of all of the typings that we have, other than maybe water and ice, they are the two that are so intrinsically linked and so similar. And there's a reason why they were combined in the Pokemon TCG, because they pared down some of these, so we had less typings. But rock and ground are just so close, and there's a the added confusion, especially for first time players of, wait, that's a rock type? I thought it was a ground type. And for the longest time, I did think that rock types were immune to electric type attacks. Because obviously the first time I played Pokemon Yellow, first time you come across a Pokemon that is resistant to, immune to your electric type attacks are Onix and Geodude, both of which are ground and rock. So you take away from that, electric doesn't work against rock. And I'm okay with electric types not working against rock as well. I just don't see, can you electrocute a rock in real life? I don't know. I don't think you can.
The difficulty you get is rock is obviously super effective against flying, and ground has 0 effect against flying. How do you balance that?
Oh, it's a difficult one, isn't it? But I guess, you know what? I think the way you balance that is either through abilities or individual moves. Of this is a ground type move, or the combination, but it can still hit flying because of the anime. So, for example, if you combined rock and ground into a new typing that was, let's say it's rock for argument's sake, and you've got Earthquake, which is now a rock type move, but its description is, ineffective against flying type Pokemon. Whereas Rock Slide, if let's say it doesn't matter if it's rock or ground, the description is super effective against flying type. That's how you get around that, is not via the typing, but the move, how the move is built. I think that's how you get around that.
That might get overly complicated.
Exactly, yeah. Which is part of I think the issue with combining some of these typings. I think and the problem is because we're now into 9 generations of this, and this is why I don't think you can easily combine some of the typings, even though I think there are certain typings that could be combined to simplify. So water and ice is another one, because it always confused me why those two are separate, because ice is just a different state of water.
Yeah.
It's strange to me, that is.
So
is there any
if so, let's go. You combine water and ice. I think realistically you kind of just get rid of ice, I think. And just keep water. I think it would be fine. Go on.
Is that because ice is just seen as really ineffective, unbalanced? Is the argument that actually ice needs a bit of a boost?
Well, ice is supposed to be a glass cannon, really. That's the idea of it, but it doesn't really work in function. No. Whereas water is already one of the strongest types. So I think if you just get rid of ice and make everything that is ice a water type, that makes it stronger. You do technically get rid of one of Dragon's weaknesses, but I think you balance that out by just giving it steel. Make steel super effective against Dragon. It does then mean that steel is one of the bulkiest types, and then hits the 2 strongest types in the game super effective, and resist water.
Talking about this makes me realize why, when they introduced Fairy, they didn't completely change the chart. It was just let's slot Fairy in, let's give it, let's make it super effective against Dragon, because Dragon doesn't really have any, weaknesses at that point, or very few weaknesses. And let's just make Steel and Poison super effective against it, just to balance that. I can understand why they just went let's not reinvent the wheel with the fairy types. And I can understand why they're very unlikely to do anything with this type chart moving forward, because the moment you change one, it throws the entire balancing out.
Yeah.
It gets very, very complicated, unfortunately, which is, one of the issues. I think, personally, the way you do this is maybe instead of rebalancing typings, it's a case of, okay, so Ice and Bug are the two that are typically looked at as they don't have any late game Pokemon that are really viable. There's a handful. There's like a handful. So maybe you just boost the individual Pokemon within them. And that's how you kind of bring these typings to the forefront a little bit more. And unfortunately, like, when you look at this, like water, for example, is one of those weird ones where, personally, I think fighting shouldn't be I think fighting should be not very effective against water. And the reason why is because, water isn't a solid. It's a liquid. It's moving around. You can't really hit it that well. Or, if you're ever in water and you're trying to swing a fist, we've all done it. Like, you're fighting against the resistance of the water. That's one that I think, like to see changed a little bit. But the problem is that water's already such a good typing. Do you really want to give it another
resistance?
And this is part of the problem with just throwing out this type chart and trying to change it, is it just gets very complicated very fast.
We've discussed before, probably the biggest loser is bug type.
Agreed.
Is there a way we can fix the typing, or is it an issue with the Pokemon and the abilities around it?
So let's just recap then of what bug is weak to and what it's resistant. So it's weak to fire. It's resistant to grass. It's bizarrely resistant to fighting, which I'll never understand.
I always forget that one.
Resistant to ground. It's weak to flying. It's weak to rock. Again, rock is a weird one, but I guess it's because rock squash bug. It's the simplest way.
Bugs live under rocks.
And are fine. Usually that's where they live, like you say, and that's where they flourish. Underneath a wet rock. Like, bugs love that. I think, for me personally, one thing that I would like to see maybe is bugs maybe having a bit of a resistance to water or electricity. Two typings that are seen quite heavily in competitive and meta. You bring out a bug Pokemon to kind of not counter it, but to limit their usefulness.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Does Bug need more of an offensive boost, or does it need a defensive boost? Because I can see what you're saying about, like, making it resistant to water. That kind of makes sense. I'd say resistance to ice kind of makes sense, because you get those bugs that, like, can freeze over the winter and then thaw out and continue. So
what's bug super effective against?
So it's super effective against grass, psychic, and dark. It feels like it's not enough. And the reason why is because, okay, bug is super effective against grass, but so many grass types have a secondary typing, a lot of poison typings. It kind of just balances out anyway, unfortunately. I don't think that's necessarily the issue. It's things that resist bug. Fire, fighting, poison. Fire, fighting, poison, flying,
ground,
ghost. Sorry. I'm not looking at this right.
This chart is weird. So
no, bug and ground is normal effective. So yes, it's fire, fighting, poison, flying, ghost, steel, and fairy. All resist bug. Why does fairy resist bug? Why?
I think bug should have been super effective on fairy. Personally, I think fairy is one of the few typings that I think is still unbalanced. I think it needs just that one extra weakness to balance it out. And I think bug is a way to do it, because it shifts bug's usefulness up, but doesn't completely change the meta, because there aren't a lot of viable bug types. But it just would allow you to have more options with bug typing, because fairy is seen so widely in competitiveness because dragon is so overpowered. So I think that's how you boost bug, is maybe making it super effective against fairy, and then it doesn't throw out the entire balance chart.
Bug and fighting resist each other.
Again, that's really weird.
That's really weird.
I'm sure there's an explanation. I'm sure there's a YouTube video out there that explains all this.
I mean, yeah, you can't
down.
punch a bug because it's really small. But
Sure.
and a bug can't take down a big fighter. I don't know. If you got rid of those two resistances, like bug and fighting no longer resisted each other, and it was super effective against fairy, would that do it?
I think.
Would you also have to get rid of the rock weakness as well?
But then are we making it too OP? And I guess this is the problem. Like, how do we change the chart? So I think that the key is minimal changes that don't have that kind of massive effect of what completely shifts the meta. It completely changes the Pokemon that rely on these typings. It's little individual changes that just give a couple of the typings a bit of a boost that they need. And I think what you've said with Bug there is a prime example of you're tweaking it slightly so it has more usefulness now, but it doesn't completely break the game. So I'm fine with Bug, just those little tweaks that you mentioned. I don't think it completely breaks it. And of course, I'm saying this not having every single Pokemon in front of me, knowing every single move ability and type combination. It might break it open. I don't know. But on paper, from what we're saying, I don't think that completely breaks it.
Yeah, you are adding another weakness to fairy, which it kind of desperately needs, really.
Needs. Agreed. Yeah.
Because its two weaknesses at the moment are really defensive types. Which isn't okay. I think throw a bug in there. Why not? Why is bug effective against fairy? Because I don't know.
Fairies are all cute and ooh, and they see a bug and it's
yeah, sure.
And I know I'm going.
Why not?
Yeah, go with that. Yeah. It wouldn't work in Japan because it's not the fairy type, it's the light type, isn't it? But
I don't know. Is it?
I think. Oh, I might be wrong now. But if that is the case, well, bugs flourish in the light. So the lightness makes the bug stronger. Am I correct or not? Is it the light type? I was furiously searching at the moment.
Is fairy type.
Oh, it's just fairy type? I'm completely wrong. Ignore me. I'm no Pokemon expert, apparently. Okay, well, regardless, fairy type, yeah, give it that bug weakness. Happy with that. I think we've rounded up bug there. Are there any other typings? Dark has always been a weird one to me because it's only super effective against
Psychic
and Ghost. And Ghost doesn't have a load of typings anyway. It always felt to me that Dark needed that one extra. The fact that it's only super effective against two typings always feels a little bit like it's missing out slightly.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of only like two that only has super effective against two typings. Dragon is weird.
Dragon is weird. It's only super effective against itself.
Yeah. But it's got a bunch of resistances, which kind of make up for it. Looking up the type chart, you got Ghost, which is super effective against two, but it also has two immunities as well to balance that out.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it does it also. It can't hit normal, which balances that out, I guess. So maybe does it need another one? I think Psychic was the other one that's only effective against two types.
Yeah, fighting poison. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's it. Everything else has at least... Oh, no, Electric. But again, Electric has an... only one weakness.
Hmm.
But it can't hit
Do you
ground
think
types.
Do you think Electric needs another weakness?
No.
I think I can make an argument for it being weak to Rock as well. Just because those two are so synonymous with one another. I don't think there's anything else in there that you could
I see what
make
you're
it weak
saying.
to.
I don't know. I think electric is good because it's only got one weakness in a weird way. Like, that's what makes electric good.
Yeah, and the fact that it's, electric isn't overpowered, which is why, like, despite the fact it doesn't have very many, it's not. It's only strong against 2. Did we say water and flying? And it's only weak to 1. Feels like it's one of those that balances out quite nicely. What I think we want to try and avoid is, this is super effective against loads, but only has 1 or 2 weaknesses. Or the flip side, like ice, for example, where it's not really super effective against a lot, but it has a load of weaknesses, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think with ice, they tried to make it like, it's super effective against dragon, and therefore it can be really weak because that balances it out, and it just kind of doesn't.
No.
Do you get rid of an ice weakness? Would that do it?
So ice is weak to fire, fighting, rock, and steel. I think yeah. And unfortunately, all those are very common typings. I think that's the problem.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you how you fix this. Ice is no longer resisted by water. Done.
Ice super effective on water?
Nope.
No.
I think that might push it too far.
Break it too far. Yeah, I can see that.
Resistance.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, because that to me works to be quite, because I've always felt that ice being super effective on water makes sense in my head because the ice would freeze the water. But I can understand why other people, I'm sure there are counter arguments to that. Like, hot water melts ice. Depends on the temperatures, doesn't it? But I think that ice definitely needs something. And maybe like you say, it's not about removing weaknesses or adding strengths. Maybe it's just about the resistance.
Because does that balance water out better as well, as if, actually we can bring in this heavy hitting Pokemon that's super effective against 4 different types and now only has 3 resistances, and the 3 things that resist it are A itself, and the other 2 are things that are super effective against it anyway.
No, I think that works. I think the issue, like we've mentioned before, is giving them nudges and not completely overhauling them. Which again, I think that does just little things just to allow some of these lesser used typings just to creep in with the meta, because they've now got at least some viability.
Yeah, we could go a whole hog and say like ice is immune to water and be super broken. It doesn't actually make sense because you can cut anything with water.
Well, definitely. We talk about like high pressurized jets. Yeah. Have you seen them where they cut through like steel
and all sorts?
Yeah, it's. What else? What about Dragon? Because Dragon has always been one of those. Did introducing Fairy do enough to curb Dragon's power, or is there more that needs to be done?
I think it did, but I think it did because Fairy's so overpowered that every team now runs Fairy, so dragons are checked because of that. Whereas if you tried to find a way to balance Fairy, say made it weak to Bug, I don't know. If you make Fairy weak to Bug, does people start running more Bug types? Is that enough?
I don't even think it's about maybe people using Bug types more. It's about the moves. So Pokemon that have a Bug type move actually now are viable in some way.
X-Scissor becomes crazy.
Yeah. Actually, it does come up. Have we broken? Yeah, we broken.
I mean,
Bug?
Again, Bug is, you still can't really bring Bug because it's resisted by fire, it's resisted by fighting, it's resisted by poison, it's resisted by flying, it's resisted by rock, it's resisted by steel. That's the big problem with Bug, is it's just resisted by too much. And I think adding Fairy onto that was just a kick in the teeth that it didn't need.
Yeah. Fighting's another weird one. It's as resisted 5 typings and immune to 1. Oh, that's a.
I don't
psychic,
understand. Like, I understand that you can't punch a ghost, but why can, like, the only other thing ghost is immune to is normal. Why is it immune to normal and normal is immune to it, but fighting is only one way?
It's weird. I think fighting normal ghost feel like they're a good triangle. You know, your rock, paper, scissors element of fighting super effective against normal. Normal, for some reason, can hit ghost. Maybe because normal's just like not an element. It's just. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in ghosts. Maybe I don't know. But then I don't know. But then ghost is super effective against fire. I don't know. It just feels like there should be a little triangle going on there, and they're not. There are so many like broken triangles and weird squares in terms of rock, paper, scissors going on in the Pokemon meta. It's really bizarre. It's strange. Any others that stick out to you? Steel. Let's look at Steel, because Steel was another one that was introduced after Generation 1. Is Steel okay at this point?
I think it is, because it was brought in as the ultimate wall, effectively. Like, it resists normal, grass, ice, is immune to poison, resists flying, psychic, bug, rock, dragon, steel, and fairy.
Yeah, so a lot of resistance. But in terms of, but it has a couple of weaknesses that are in firefighting and ground, which doesn't sound like a lot, but a lot of Pokemon will run, or a lot of teams will run. Close combat, earthquake, flamethrower. Like, these are moves that are typically will be on a team in a competitive battle.
Yeah, these are your aggressive typings, really. Fire, fighting, ground. Water is a more balanced. Fairy has been kind of aggressive recently. So it was nice that they made it resistant to Fairy. That was a good call, I think. And made it super effective against Fairy.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think Steel's fine. I really do.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this just to see if there are anything else that stand out to me at the moment, and I don't think that there is, unfortunately. Flying type's a bizarre one, because it's like, what constitutes flying? Does that make sense? Like, the fact that we don't have the bird typing, the more I think about it, because if so many of the flying types look like birds, but not everything that is a flying type is a bird. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so there are certain things that fly that, like, what constitutes flying?
So, for instance, flying is super effective against bug, and that makes sense to everyone because, of course, birds eat bugs. But are you going to tell me Dragonite eats bugs? Are you going to tell me Salamence eats bugs? You're going to tell me that, Butterfree eats bugs? No. So that logic kind of breaks down, and again, you can go, all right, flying isn't super effective against bug. But then, what is flying super effective against? Grass and fighting.
Maybe flying is one of those that doesn't have. Maybe it's a bit like. Maybe it's the opposite of electric. And I understand I'm probably making this a little bit broken at this point. Of flying is immune to fighting and immune to ground, because it's those are close combat, and flying is it's up in the air. Maybe the way you balance that is it's got 2 immunities, but it has a shed load of weaknesses in electric, ice, rock. Maybe that's how you balance it out. It's one of those high risk, high rewards.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what we're learning here is that the type chart's really, really good.
It is.
It's fairly well balanced, all things considered. I don't think adding a new typing is the answer.
I agree. Now, as someone that has played plenty of ROM hacks that have introduced different typings, some to great success, some to very poor reception, I think that unfortunately that option has passed now for Pokemon. I think that, and the reason I think that now is after we have just gone through this type chart to kind of figure it out, adding any new typing would, unless they go for the fairy route of, okay, we add it, but it's almost like it's tacked on, and we give it a couple of weaknesses, give it a couple of resistances, make super effective against 1, 2, and 3. Unfortunately, I don't see how you can introduce a new typing without completely ripping up this type chart and almost starting again.
Yeah, unfortunately. And we are not sophisticated enough game designers to do that.
No, I can understand now a little bit better as to why Gen 1 was so broken and why they needed to, very quickly in Gen 2 to bring out Dark and Steel typings and change a couple of things, because I'd imagine on paper they probably went to Gen 1 thinking, yeah, this type chart feels very balanced, only to then realize, right, it's not. And they've done a lot of work, to be fair, to tweak it as they've gone in, whether or not that's changing a couple of resistances and weaknesses, or just, adding new moves for certain Pokemon to give them more viability, or of course adding 3 new typings since Gen 1.
Here's a question for you. If instead of releasing the fairy typing, they just gave Dragon extra weaknesses to Steel and Poison, do you think it would have had the same effect of nerfing Dragon enough so that it didn't completely overrun the game?
I think yes. And I'm just going on gut feeling here. And part of the reason why is because Steel is so... Actually, because Dragons typically have access to Fire-type moves. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And suddenly Steel, you're bringing that in as the counter, but it's then countered by the thing it was bought in to counter. And I guess Dark I could see working, mainly because Dark doesn't have a huge amount of weakness overlap with Dragon. I'm just thinking there are Dragon types that have access to fighting moves, but not all Dragons have access to fighting moves. Typically, they'll have elemental moves. So I think Dark is probably the better counter of the two. But then Steel pairs up with a lot of typings really well, which might help to limit some of those weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like Steel and Rock, for example, suddenly that, Dragonite having access to Fire Punch actually isn't that much of a worry anymore, because it's Steel Rock is suddenly, it's balanced out.
You're going to have to continue this conversation in the comments and by sending us messages and things like that, because we're not going to answer this question. It was a fun conversational topic.
It was, that went on for half an hour. Was trying to do what we do best and just go off on tangents. But that's the show for this week, isn't it, Conor?
It is indeed.
And if you've gone this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? Before you go, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. If you're watching on YouTube, then please leave a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, as it really helps out our podcast. If you got a comment, a question, or a topic that you want us to cover, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, by leaving it on our Discord channel, or by using the hashtag Goldenrod Pod on Twitter. All those are in the links down below, or in the description, show notes, whatever it's called, down below. Conor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget. Told you, mate. I'm off Twitter. That's it.
You're off.
We're not doing it anymore.
Good. And you can find me as Professor Hoeing Gaming on YouTube. And for now, Professor Hoeing on Twitter. I don't know how long that will last. We'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content.
See ya.